Yeah, good morning. Let us resume our discussion. Quickly, some of you convey a few of the points that we have discussed in last class, so that we will move on to the next discussion.
Sir, we discussed about DenseNet, that how concatenation is being done there. Then about wide residual network, variation in ResNets also.
Okay, we discussed about a few other CNN architectures. Specifically, we discussed about DenseNets, concatenating the maps for effective backpropagation in deep convolutional neural networks. And we also discussed about wide residual networks, ResNext kind of architectures, and network in networks, neural architecture, such, and so on. Different state-of-the-art deep neural networks, convolutional neural networks, and some of the methods for designing the architectures itself. So now let's continue our discussion. Now in subsequent classes, a couple of classes from now, we will concentrate on how these different network architectures can be applied in different computer vision tasks. So far, our discussion is on understanding some of the like basic convolutional neural networks and understanding how the convolutional neural networks architectures are developed for image classification mainly. Because image classification, as we said, is the backbone for our essential learning task for many of the other computer vision tasks as well. Now let us see more explicitly on other computer vision tasks, how these architectures subsequently got evolved and how these are also helpful in training and probably developing the architectures for the other computer vision tasks. So let me share the screen. And then what I wish you to tell is what are the different computer vision tasks that you people are aware. So other than classification, what are the computer vision tasks that we would like to discuss, or which we would like to which we you people are very familiar with? Okay, classification is anyway there. What are the other computer vision tasks?
Segmentation.
Yeah, very good.
Detection, tracking.
Yeah, segmentation. Okay, and then object detection. Okay, and then tracking. Any other things? Any other tasks? Okay, 3D construction. Okay, image super resolution. Image restoration. So these are all different computer. See, some of the computer vision tasks, especially classification, if you see, actually image is the input. So if we just see input, okay, and the output, the image is the input, and then class label is the output. So you have actually say a set of say class 1, class 10, and so on. Okay, so finally what you need to do is different class codes. That's what you need to do in a classification scenario, right? But in image segmentation, see, do you note any common or similarity between all these tasks? Image segmentation, 3D reconstruction, image super resolution, restoration kind of tasks. Do you see any common thing in this? So do you notice any difference between classification methods and the segmentation methods? What do we do in image segmentation? This classification. Okay, in image segmentation, what do we do? If we are given an image, what's our objective is what? What is the objective in image segmentation? Yes, some quick answers.
So to segment the different regions of the image.
Right. So we may say that here, say there is a car. Okay. And here there may be a person. Okay, here there may be grass. Okay, and so on. And we may be able to hear some traffic light. So we may do some kind of segmentation of some of the class, like we may explicitly mark the regions of different objects. And especially if we consider there are different kinds of segmentations. One is semantic segmentation. Another is instance segmentation. And then panoptic segmentation. Okay, I will anyway visually show through the slides difference between these things. But semantic segmentation means every pixel in this image has to be given a label. Okay, so semantic, we give all pixels in the background as background. But some label will be given. And again, the labels of this. So in semantic segmentation, label is given to each of the classes. Each pixel is labeled. Whereas in instance segmentation, okay, what's in instance segmentation? What do we do? Any quick answer? Each instance of the object is labeled. That means if you have actually 2 cars, okay, and then 5 persons, you can give different labels to each of these things. Okay, whereas here 5 persons, all persons will have the same label. Okay, so only what we are separating here is car, okay, person, and then background, and so on. Right? And then here in panoptic segmentation, what do we do? So it will have actually both. So both in the sense that you will have actually each pixel label. And each object or instance of the object is also labeled. Okay. So hope this is clear. So essentially, but if we see network architectures to perform these things, see, you can have a network architecture, which may be, say, here it may initially start with large number of layers. Okay, and then it may finally come to a specific, say, 1 dimension. This may be initially be 2 dimensions because of convolution neural network architectures. Okay, roughly same size as the image. And then finally it will have some different layers, and subsequently come to a one like C cross 1 vector, because you need to give probabilities for the C classes. Okay, assume that C classes. Right, but here is H cross W cross number of say whatever the image dimensions, number of channels that we take in input. Right, whereas here, what kind of architecture do you think you need? The input is also same dimension, say H cross W cross 3 or whatever. Output is what dimension? Again H cross W cross if we consider segmentation H class, W class, C classes means usually C can be there, C outputs. And then you can take the maxima among these things and give the subsequent label. Okay. So essentially, this is the kind of architecture we would like to have. The input dimensions and the output dimensions are same in segmentation networks. Okay, so the network architectures has to be in line with that, right? Similarly, now if we consider object detection and visual tracking, what is the objective? You may initially start with an image, but what is the objective? You need to detect where all the different objects in this image are. If it is object detection, okay, you may need to mark some of the objects. Okay, so that's object detection. So this is the input. And this is output. Okay, for object detection task, right? Whereas for visual tracking, you may wish to track a particular object, single object or multiple objects. And you need to have a track. That means actually, so you need to establish again, we need to perform in some sense object detection or detection in each frame. Okay, and then try them through the the coordinates of previous location will be used for finding out the object location in the next frame. Okay, in that way, there is a simplicity, or in terms of the search space where we want to search for the object, there is a close vicinity in tracking. Okay, that's only the difference between object detection and the tracking. Okay, object detection looks at the whole image and try to tell what objects are there. Okay, and visual tracking start initially with a particular set of objects. Okay, if it is single object detection, we clearly know that we want to track car. Okay, if it is multi-object detection, we know that we need to track persons, cars, and so on. Okay, then the number of objects in each image also keep varying. We need to detect and track together. Okay, in multi-object tracking. So, but in either case, the image dimension and input and output roughly like are same. But the thing is, what we want here is label for each pixel. Okay, in segmentation. But here we don't want label for each pixel. For a bounding box, we need a label. Label for bounding box. See, if who will give us bounding box first? So you need to find bounding box. Okay, and then give label for it. Okay, that's what need to be done in object detection and visual tracking. Fine. See, even in 3D reconstruction or in image super resolution or in restoration, okay, like segmentation, you have the image dimensions of input and output same. Roughly, in sense that say H cross W is what I'm saying as same. The number of channels can vary. And depending if it is image super resolution, then what happens? The input dimension and output dimension will be exactly same. So you have actually say, let me sketch a low resolution image. Okay. And then super resolution means you need to get actually double the resolution or 4 times the resolution and so on. And this is the input. And this is the output. Okay. And network architecture should also be like that. So it may start with some convolution layers. Okay. And then have actually subsequently, finally, it should have actually the dimension of the output layer itself should be such that it gives the information in of high resolution image. Okay. One more thing, if you notice, the cost functions also are the tasks that we do in learning also may vary. Here we are doing classification very specifically. Classification means you may use binary class entropy or whatever. You may give, say, finally, even though you use probabilities and so on intermediately, finally, our objective is to say that whether it belongs to a particular class or not. Okay. So you need to take a decision on belonging to that class or not belonging to that class based on the class probabilities. That's what you do in classification. Okay. So finally, you are not finding out a real number at the output. You are finding out a discrete class or discrete decision you are taking, belonging or not belonging. Okay. Based on the probabilities you get. So that's the classification frameworks. Segmentation methods also, you need to give at each pixel a particular class label. You want to say which class, that class, okay, person class, and so on, which class it belongs to. So both of these things strictly come under classification. Okay, a kind of frameworks. One is classification for the whole image, another is classification at pixel level. That's the difference, right? Whereas here in object detection, what are we doing? We need to find where the bounding box is. Okay, and then we need to give the label for the class bounding box. Okay, so essentially finding where the bounding box is done through what? Bounding box means XY location of the bounding box. Okay, and HW of the bounding box. Essentially X, Y, HW for the bounding box. Wherever we say bounding box, essentially it is X, Y, HW or X, Y, DX, DY, DH, DW. With respect to the previous estimate of it, we are trying to find out the deviation. Okay, in the X, Y, and HW. So typically these are the ones which we will try to identify a bounding box with. Of course, recent methods also identify a bounding box with the center point or the corner points. Okay, and try to directly get the object information from the center point and corner points. Okay, so but in general, we assume X, Y, HW is the bounding box. So these are all the real numbers. So how do we estimate them? It's essentially the estimation only. Okay, of the location over the whole image. That is done through what procedure? Done through what?
Regressions.
Regression. Okay, done through regression. So here we have both regression and classification. So here class label is found through classification. Okay, this is class label is through classification. Okay, and whereas the location of the bounding box is through regression. Once you find a particular location, you try to find out which class does it belongs to. Is it a person class or a cat class, dog class, or any other class? Okay, so both are involved in detection. Okay, in tracking, usually in single object tracking, we know the object which we want to track. So there we need not assign what object it is. So we need not give a class label. Okay, it is enough to give the XYHW, or we need to exactly identify the location of the object. Okay, in that particular frame. That's tracking from previous frame. Okay, that with reference to previous frame also we can establish. That's in tracking. So that's mainly dominated by regression there. Okay, so and in other than segmentation, if you see in image super resolution, see what we want here, we have a low resolution image, some face or whatever. Okay, so you have some content. Here you need high resolution image. Okay, so you need the information at each pixel. This information may be from 0 to 255 or in the gray levels that we consider. So you need information in pixels. So this is usually considered as a regression task. In the sense that we want to find out very closely to the ground truth values. Ground truth values means in the training set, we have the high resolution image as well. Okay, there we try to use them and train such a way that this network in such a way that for a given input image, it predicts the high resolution image. Or it say we may have actually a kernel usual procedure to find out high resolution image is that what we through understanding the like the camera capturing process. See what happens when a camera captures. Okay, so there will be some like the real scene is being captured through a set of operations. One operation is, say, optical kernel will be there, which will blur the region or which will average the region. Say optical kernel will look at each different regions. Say a sensor element will look at this region and another sensor element in CCD camera will look at this region. It will actually in the real scene, it will find effective convolution in this location. So convolution with optical kernel is the one operation that happens. Okay, and through if the object is moving, there will be a blur kernel. Okay, and see, if you use two different cameras, one with high resolution, other with low resolution, there will be, with respect to the HR image, okay, there will be downsampling kernel. Okay, so with all these operations put together, downsampling kernel may be after this or before this. Okay, it depends upon the model. And putting all this, you get the LR image. Okay, so this is the real process. So now depicting this, what we are trying to do is, we are trying to say, we are assuming that there is a downsampling kernel which will bring the, say, input from the output. Say if you give a HR image to LR image, there is a downsampling kernel. And what this method or network trying to do is to find out some kind of inverse of it. That is upsampling kernel. Okay, and that we in general we want to learn, and that we would like to use in super resolution. Okay, this is learned through a regression process mostly. So like the similar lines, 3D reconstruction also can be posed as a regression process. Okay, some of them also can be posed as classification tasks. Okay, given the number of channels and so on, few other aspects. So typically, this is the some overall idea on the network requirements, okay, to evolve or perform these computer vision tasks. Now we want to see more closely, okay, with each of the tasks, how the network should be, okay, how the architecture of the network should be. So let's consider now first the segmentation. So assume that we have actually an input image. Okay, and this is semantic segmentation. Assume that we want to perform is semantic segmentation. So what essentially we need is, at each pixel, okay, we need some label. Okay, so now the question is, how should be the network? What do we know so far is convolution neural network having a set of convolution layers. You may start with a first convolution layer C1. Okay, and then you may have a downsampling layer. Okay, and you may again have a convolution layer, and you may have a downsampling layer. Like this, you know about, say this is S1, and then C2, and then S2, and so on. You know, this is how the architecture, convolution CNN architectures are. Okay, so now what do you think? How do you think we can perform? We can give a label to each of the pixels. Any idea on this? Yeah, quick thoughts on how the network should be. Yeah, those, any inputs from your side is welcome.
Again, we need to reverse the process.
Okay, so one idea is, anyway, we have done some kind of downsampling or subsampling. Okay, at these locations, and anyway convolutions at rest of the places. So the reason for performing convolutions is for what? Convolutions are for what? Feature extraction. Okay, or this is also referred to as feature encoding. What do we mean by feature encoding? Say we have the whole information of the image here that we want to compactly represent in terms of a very small number of features or a small dimensional maps. Okay, so this is in some sense encoding. This information and this information are same, okay, in some sense, or they have the, like, this information and this information are corresponding. Okay, however, these are represented in a like encoded manner, which may not look like an image, right? And downsampling is what is done for effective compact representation. Now, since anyway we need finally, okay, the dimension of the this to be same, one idea is, whatever is suggested is, you take all this and then perform the like roughly in opposite operations. That is, you upsample. So let me see if Okay, and there is a like convolution layer, and then let me directly put here. And then upsampling. Let's put upsampling itself. Okay, so convolution and upsampling I'm putting here. C3 and okay, upsampling. I'm putting actually sampling layer only. So yes, only I'm putting, but we will distinguish. You may have C4 and then S4 put together. Okay, like this. I just put for simplicity without explicitly mentioning the other layers. Okay, now what essentially we are doing is, see, this here we are downsampling, but here this sampling layer should be what? In some sense upsample. If we are doing here max pooling or pooling layer, here it should be unpooling. Right? So the question is, how do we do that? Okay, so one way to do is, say for example, as we have seen in backpropagation, okay, similar thing we do here also. So assume that we have 5, 7, 8, 3. And in downsampling, what we will be doing here, you will be putting 3. Okay, if you want to perform an upsampling layer here, exactly opposite to that, you take actually, say what you do, whatever the information you have here, okay, you take the location where you are, put that information, okay, and then remaining things you may put 0. So this is in some kind of unpooling. Taking the information of the, this is referred to as, first half is referred to as encoder. Second half is referred to as decoder. So we may use the information of information from the encoder while decoding. Or max unpooling. Right? So if we perform an averaging here, we will be doing actually the opposite, like exactly putting at all places, same value, like that. So we will be guided by the operation that we do. This is one kind of networks. See, even before that, there are other kind of networks. See, which ideally, in sense that if each image, say, a pixel is to be given a label. Okay, before this is a very advanced networks wherein we have already come across a few other simpler ideas. One idea is you take each patch and send it to a CNN and put a class label. Okay, like that you do for each patch. This is the initial evolution of the segmentation networks. Where we want to give for each patch one label. Now this is, what's the issue with this kind of an architecture? If we do that, what is the issue with this kind of architecture? Quick thoughts on this.
Computationally very expensive.
Yeah, computationally very expensive. Reason being, each patch we are trying to separately process and give. Okay, whereas there is a good overlap in the information, in the sense that whole information representing compactly and then doing something with that is much more efficient way. Okay, so no need to process each patch as separate entity. The whole image can be effectively used to give the, say, whole spatial information, object informations. Okay, and then no repetitive information need to be processed several times. All those things can be taken care when we process the whole image. So that's this kind of architectures are now more welcome. So the other kind of architectures are fully convolution networks. So of course, even fully convolution networks are now also there. But here the initial evolution of fully convolution networks is, okay, with the same size of the, so no pooling layers at all. Then if we don't have any pooling layer, what will happen? Our sampling layer. Why is this architectures will give segmentation? No pooling or sampling layer. Why do you think this? Because the input dimension.
The output dimension.
Yeah, input dimension equal to output dimension. But what is the disadvantage even with this kind of architectures? This also, see, for each convolution you will be using some convolution maps. Okay, kernels. These kernels are to be placed at each image location. Okay, and then the number of operations. Okay, in each convolution layer is proportional to the image dimensions. Okay, number of operations proportional to H into W into convolution kernel. Okay, F cross F into say number of maps. Is it not? So this is what is the number of operations. So they are directly proportional to the image dimension. Don't reduce the image dimensions anywhere and have deeper networks. Okay, you will be again computationally intensive. Right? So for that, this kind of encoder decoder architectures became much more famous. Okay, so you do in encoding compactly representing information with reduced feature map dimensions and hence the number of operations, and use some kind of decoder to decode to the pixel level labels or a final inference, pixel level inference. Okay, so the unpooling can be done. That's one way of doing actually upsampling. The other way of doing upsampling is what? See, downsampling also can be done. Downsampling or upsampling can also be done through a kind of convolution operation with different strides. Say if I have H cross W cross, say whatever, H cross W image, okay, and I want H by 2 cross W by 2 features by convolution operation. Okay, so any suggestion on that? How should I perform convolution? I may have actually 5 cross 5 kernel. Okay, and I may use zero padding as well to take care of some kind of dimension matching. Okay, but with 5 cross 5 kernel, if I want to get H cross W image to H by 2 cross W by 2 image, okay, what kind of operation, convolution operation should we do? With what stride should we do?
Stride to
Stride?
2, sir.
Yeah, stride equal to 2. If we put what we do, we perform a convolution here, we will get one value here. Okay, stride 2 means what? 2 pixels we will delay. Okay, and then we may be putting here. Okay, and here to here there is a 2 pixel shift. Okay, so I might, if I use 5 cross 5, it's fine. Okay, it depends upon the kernel dimension also, but this shift is 2 pixels. Okay, that is S equal to 2. So in that case, what happens? The next pixel is here. So for a row of say 256, I may get a 128. Similarly, here also 128. Right? So with this stride, I'm still using what? Learning process only. Okay, through learning on, I'm not doing downsampling. Please note that. This is learning based, okay, sampling, subsampling. Okay, so I can apply convolution itself to reduce the dimensions. Okay, so similar manner, If I want to increase the dimension, so assume that I have a encoder blocks. So I am not sketching all the intermediate stuff. Assume that these are all encoder. Now I want to do decoding. Get to the image dimension. So here also I may be able to use some kind of learning based upsampling. Right? So here learning based subsampling or downsampling is through convolution. With what? Stride greater than 1. Okay, so stride greater than 1 or 2, like if I consider 2, 3 and so on, downsampling by 2, downsampling by 3 happens, right? If I want to perform learning based upsampling, this can also be done through what? Convolution operation again with stride less than 1 or fractional stride. Okay, fractional strided convolutions. Okay, are also referred to as transpose convolutions. Okay, so what are transpose convolutions? Let me explain transpose convolutions in one dimension. How do you see essentially what they are doing? They're increasing the dimensions. Okay, so here you may, the idea is you may put a kernel here. Even with one single overlap, you will see and you will put the value here. And you put the again kernel here. Okay, and again with the whatever is the multiplication of that. So the value of that multiplication will come here. So here output, there is a, say, here what we are doing, we are moving in the input by 2 pixels. Okay, in stride. Here in the output, we move by 2 pixels. That means here we are moving by a half pixel. Okay, so whatever the result I get through convolution operation or element wise multiplication with the input image here, I will put here. Okay, that I will overlap with a shift of 2 in the output. Okay, with the weighted value of the kernel I get here. So I will explain this sharing the slides. Yeah, here is the discussion on the transpose convolution or learnable upsampling, so where we can see that actually at each pixel now, as I discussed, we will put a kernel. Okay, and at that location, say for example, if we are putting at this location, so the kernel is multiplied with the value here. Okay, and that values are put here. Say kernel is learnable, so W1 to W9 is what we have with us, that we multiply with this value and put here. Okay, and as like unlike in the convolution where we strided convolution in for subsampling, where we give a stride in the input, here we give the stride in the output. Okay, so we are giving a stride in the output means 1 by 2 times that we are moving in the input. Okay, that you can consider 2 times, like 2 units moving in the input is equivalent to is stride 2. 2 units moving in the output is equivalent to stride half. Okay, so in that way you can interpret. So now if you consider that we in the output, okay, we are exactly from here previously the kernel is centered. Now it is centered here. So it is again stride 2 in the output. So the overall stride that we consider, or the stride we consider, is half. Okay, because stride always is calculated with respect to the input. And at this location, again, we make a multiplication with the element wise multiplication with the value and the kernel elements. Okay, and put it here. Like that, we keep going. So if we have actually 3x3 kernel, okay, and then here say 2x2 image, then the output dimensions, if you see, okay, we will start from putting a 3x3 here, right? And then if we put a 3x3 here, we get actually say 3x3, and then with a shift of 2 if we put, okay, so 3x3 is already there with us, And then what we have is another another 2 rows added. Okay, so essentially what we'll be getting is 5. Okay, 5 cross 5 we can get. However, we can also consider in terms of here 0 with the appropriate like padding and so on, you can consider the dimension to be reduced dimension. So if we consider here, this is 3 cross 3, it is put. So 3 means 1 here, 1 up, 1 down, right? So it's only like 1 pixel added now. If we consider here 1 pixel added, so effectively it is coming as 4 cross 4. Okay, as you can see, like when we reduce the dimension through convolution, 1 row up, 1 row up, down will be reduced if you use a 3 cross 3 kernel. But if you are using in transpose convolution, 1 row up and 1 row down will be added. Okay, that's essentially is what you are getting here. So 4 cross 4 is what the dimension you will get. This has to be shown at this location. Okay, so considering that, you will have actually 4 cross 4 output. Right, this is the depiction in 2 dimensions. Now to understand this better, you can see in 1 dimension. If this is the input now and this is the filter, what essentially we are doing is the input is being multiplied by the filter and put here. Okay, AX, Y, AX, AY and AZ. And then with a stride 2, if we are doing, this filter in the input moves by, okay, with respect to the center of the previous one, it moves by 2 locations. So this center is moved by 2 locations. Now you can see that B into the same thing, and then you have put here. So this is the output. So what we are doing essentially here is we are like multi A into this. Okay, we are putting at a location, moving by 2 units. Okay, and B into that we are putting at that location, and the sum of that we are taking as the output. So this is essentially the transpose convolution or the strided convolution. So to depict this as the why this is called as transpose convolution. So we can just see that actually if we consider a transpose convolution, what we are doing is this with a stride of 1. Okay, we are moving here. This is the center and this is stride of 1 here. Okay, and then if we consider the transpose of, say, if you write in matrix form, what essentially we are doing is xy and 0. So we can write this operation, okay, exactly in matrix form. You can consider xyz 0 and 0 xyz, and you can write this in matrix form. And once you do it in matrix form, you can also apply transpose of this matrix. Okay, and then now if you see, what we are doing here is nothing but the convolution operation. Okay, where you see that actually through convolution. So if you do this multiplication, AY plus BZ, AX plus BY. So it's essentially XYZ if you consider signal. Okay, AB is sliding on that. And at different locations, at the first location, okay, we are considering AY into BZ. At second location, we are considering AX into BY. So we are calculating the values of the samples based on the sliding of the signal on the filter here. Okay, yes, it can be interchanged on how we write, but essentially, as you can see, the name transpose convolution comes because you can see here at a kind of transpose operation between conventional convolution and disconvolution. So if you have any questions on this, you please ask. Otherwise, I will discuss once briefly with the slides, with the help of slides, the segmentation architectures, how they have evolved, etc. We will see some visual representation of segmentation architectures. Any quick questions? Okay, let me discuss that. And if the transpose convolution, etc. is not clear, okay, feel free to ask, we will discuss again. Okay, so let's see now different image processing and computer vision tasks. How are they done? Through convolutional neural networks. Also, as we discussed in the earlier classes as well, the computer vision tasks essentially are semantic segmentation, object detection, and then multi-object detection, and then instance segmentation, and few other tasks like visual tracking, 3D reconstruction, and so on. Also, as we discussed, the semantic segmentation aims at labeling each pixel. And for that, we need an architecture which will label each patch. If we do that, it is very computationally intensive, as is depicted here. And the other way of doing, as we discussed, is to use like without subsampling layers. We can use a set of convolution layers to directly map the input image to the labels. Okay, this is a kind of learning or functional mapping between the input information to the pixels, to the labels at each pixel. Okay, this can also be done through learning. However, this is computationally very intensive because we are like using all throughout the same dimensions, and the operations, number of operations are very high. Even though the number of learnable parameters are less in the convolutional neural networks due to weight sharings. The better architectures finally evolved for segmentation or with encoder decoder architectures. So wherein you have actually a series of convolutions and downsampling layers, subsampling layers for encoding the object information or image information, whole image information, and then decoding the whole image information through a label space. Okay, wherein you can clearly see that the labels at each pixel can be obtained through the decoder. For operations of like decoding, you can use the information that's done, not the procedure that is done in the encoding. So as we discussed, like in decoding, we need to do upsampling. Upsampling can be done through, say, if I use averaging kernel in the forward direction, I may be using the like repetition at those 4 locations in the upsampling. If I'm using actually a max pooling kind of operation, at the max location, I may do unpooling. Okay, as you can see here, max pooling, and it is unpooling. So we are putting the information, whatever is here, okay, at the location where the maximum was there, okay, in the encoder branch. Hope these things are clear. Up to here, all things are very clear. And then comes the learnable upsampling layers or transpose convolutions. What essentially previously we were doing is, we were at image, say, if we are doing convolution, we perform on the image, okay, convolution operation, okay, and then put the value there. Now what we are doing is, on the kernel, we are doing element-wise multiplication with the image or information of the previous layer features, okay, and then tiling them. The element-wise multiplication on the filter with the features, okay, with some stride, we are tiling and averaging or adding them as the information. So in this way, what we are doing, essentially, if we are using averaging kernel, it means that it is all 1 by 4, 1 by 4, 1 by 4, 1 by 4. So you're repeating same information at 4 times. You're also repeating at 4 times the second information. And at the intersection region or blending region, you're just adding, averaging the information. So that's what is happening if you use the averaging kernel. So hope with that you can understand what is the procedure of this learnable convolutions. Okay, so in general, what we are doing is, this 3x3 kernel or 5x5 kernel, whichever we are using for the learnable convolutions, can also be learned through backpropagation. So that's the advantage. So that you have actually upsampling kernels also can be learned for a given task. So this is one-dimensional depiction, and this is through writing the convolution matrix form and representing as transpose convolutions. Yeah. So I will stop here. If you have any quick question, you can ask. Okay, no other questions? Thank you then. So let's resume our discussion in the next class. Bye.